Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We got a full house tonight because we've got a very, very tough opponent. I've got Bill Greene, I've got the infamous Nevadabuck, and I have one of the newest members of the Scoop family, Mr. James Yoder. James, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. It is a great pleasure to be joining you, esteemed gentlemen, as a paying customer. So thanks for having me.
So what was your turning point in the rivalry from just blanket always hating us to actually joining an Ohio State site? Like, what brought you to this?
All right. So really, like, there's a 2-month window of time. And so I had been to one Ohio State game in my life in Columbus, but I've probably been like 150 in Ann Arbor or Middle East Michigan games. I've been to every Ohio State Michigan game in the Big House since '95, right? Okay, so 2018, I'm like, all right, I didn't go in 06 because saving for the national championship. I didn't go in 16, saving for the playoff, right? Like that kind of thing. 2018, I'm like going, missing touch. And I just talked to Michigan fans and friends and everybody, just don't wear anything Michigan. You're going to get pelted with beers. You're going to get treated terribly. And I'm just like, I'm not going out like that, right? And so we started off a bunch of guys in their mid 30s, 6:45 a.m. Second, the bars open. Everyone Ohio State, morning of the game, and I straight up had Michigan, jersey underneath, the Jordan pull up on. It's pretty cold outside, right? And no one gave me shit, right? No one yelled at me, no one cracked, and people started buying me drinks, and it was very cordial. I'm like, this is the exact opposite of what I expected. And so go to the game, and I got some jeering walking up to my seats, all this stuff, and go to try and get a beer in the third quarter. Whenever they stopped selling beer, I didn't actually get one because I missed the line. And it was right when Shea Patterson throws the interception, and there's like the punt block for a touchdown. It goes from a 1 or 2 score game to just blowout that it became. And I'm just like, do it. I'm not going back into that stadium and walking up those stairs in my seat. And people just kept coming by, like, hey man, it's all good. You guys will get right there. And some guy ended up just giving me a beer, right? He's like, oh, I feel bad for you. Had a pocket beer, gave it to me, and then went out in the town all the rest of the day. And people were really cordial. And then fast forward a few 6 weeks later, I get some scoop on Al Washington from somebody in the agents world. Put it out. It was one of my first tweets ever put out Ohio State related, because it was a Michigan guy, and my tweet was basically, while Jim Harbaugh hasn't been heard of in 3 weeks, he must be off on vacation. Ryan Day just comes in and scoops his best recruiter, and is going to take him to Ohio State. Al Washington, discussing with the Buckeyes, and it got something like 6,000 or 7,000 likes and all this stuff. Michigan, Yoder's the loser. We hate this guy. Ohio State fans, this is good news. And I got a bunch of followers from it and started interacting with you guys. And so like that 6-week period, I went from like everything I've heard about Ohio State fans is, even though I grew up in Ohio, but it is not as true. And so that's my backstory. 2018 game, and now I'm just like, yeah, that was the turning point for Jim Harbaugh for me with just everything Harbaugh says is gold, and we believe he's got it going on. Saw what Ryan Day did last year in 19 and then 20. And now I've just kind of become neutral, where I just call it how it is at this point.
James, I want to ask you a question. I want to take you back to last fall and into the winter with the Harbaugh contract, I guess extension, whatever it was. I'd never seen anything like that before. Now, someone told me, and we hear so much stuff, you don't know what to believe, but It seemed awful weird that he had that extension on his desk for a while, and he didn't sign it until after Black Monday in the NFL. Do you think he waited, hoping he would get a call from San Diego or from Houston, and then he just kind of was forced to come back to Michigan because he had nowhere else to go?
I have absolutely no doubt, both from a guts and intuition and the limited information you could pull from it, because Harbaugh really doesn't have an agent at this point. But people were very tight-lipped, both on the Michigan side, who really didn't know anything. But the NFL, it's pretty tough to keep these things quiet. And I think Harbaugh was waiting to see if he would get that offer. And I don't necessarily know if it was to take it. I think it was to try and get the upper hand back, because they treated him as he should have been treated, but he just wasn't used to it, where he's not going to make $8 million, $9 million a year. So I 100% think that whether it was for leverage or trying to actually get an NFL job offer, that was 100% in my mind the reason it went into early January.
We got Nevada. You gotta have something.
Yeah, well, James, first of all, thanks for joining us here tonight. And the question that I have, I guess it's a broad question, but I really like to think, what's wrong with it, Michigan? What's changed in your view? Because obviously something's changed. It's palpable, and I'd really like to hear a Michigan fan, a knowledgeable Michigan fan's perspective on what do you think has changed with the program, with the rivalry, and with what your place in the college football world right now.
Sure. If I could just pinpoint it to 2 or 3 things. Number one, it's lack of an elite running back for 15 years, right? I mean, as crazy as minor of a thing that is, when Michigan hasn't had a running back drafted in the first 4 rounds since Chris Perry in the 2004 draft, I think it was, so it's 17 drafts ago. That's a big deal. And if you look at Ohio State, a Michigan fan perspective, they just pass the ball over the place. But if you watch the games, that's not true. They dominate, most seasons with a great running back, great running attack. And so Michigan just has fallen off since Lloyd Carr left in the skill position player. Mike Carr, who's now the running backs coach, he was the last running back that I felt really super comfortable about that could be put on any team in the country and probably still have a chance to start. That's number one. And then most recently under Jim Harbaugh, I think they've lost the identity of who cares about the rivalry and why they care about it. Haven't recruited Ohio, haven't recruited Michigan that well, to be frank, and have, the Don Brown northeast part of the country thing was a weird one. New Jersey, Harbaugh got really obsessed with Georgia for a cycle or two there, and basically all those kids transferred out within 2 years. So, I mean, people want to blame the quarterback, people want to blame the offensive scheme. But if you had Najee Harris the last 4 years, I think the outcome of what we think about Harbaugh would be a lot different. And if you had won some of these in-state, these battles with Ohio State that they used to win. Kirk, you mentioned the Ted Ginn interview you had, and I was listening to that. And it was really surprising how he opened up about all the money Jim Tressel paid him to go there, but that's not what we're talking about here. He used to get guys like Pierre Woods and Sean Crable and Prescott Burgess, and obviously before that, Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson. And not getting those guys anymore. The kids who were either wanted to go to Michigan because it was the cool thing to do, and Ohio State's losing them to them like they were 20 years ago, or it was the player like Desmond who was slighted by Ohio State, wants to go back and prove everybody wrong. Those kids don't exist at Michigan anymore. Brady Hoke tried, and I think that team was the 2016 team, right? A lot of the Ohio recruits he got, and a lot of the right players, I think that mattered. It's kind of weird to think about it. Harbaugh's best team was his second year, which was almost all Brady Hoke guys.
James, to follow up on that, it wasn't just Lloyd Carr that was able to go head-to-head with Ohio State and win recruiting battles. Brady Hoke won recruiting battles head-to-head with Jim Harbaugh. He got Tom Strobel, he got Chris Wormley, Devion Smith. I mean, so he was able to win recruiting battles against Urban Meyer, and Harbaugh doesn't even really try. So, and there's probably never been a great Michigan.
And the guys that he tries for are
second tier.
For sure, it's second tier. Exactly what I was about to say. It's like they're not the guys that are going to make a difference.
Yeah, and there's probably never been a great Michigan team that didn't have a huge Ohio contingent on it.
100%. I really think that's what it is in a lot of ways. And if those things were all equal, I think you could realistically say Michigan could have won a game or two here in the last 6, 7, 8 years, even before Harbaugh got there. But Harbaugh came in 2015 against a team that just won the national title, and he took over 5-7 program. But you can realistically say the gap is much bigger now than it was then. National title versus 5-7. The gap is bigger 6 years later, which is borderline insane to say.
No, I think you're right. If you look back, there were a couple of games, the famous game in Ohio where JT Barrett, was he short? Did he get it? Whatever. That was an even game from the time they kicked the ball off. And that game was in Ohio. And that was two
Mhm.
teams playing to overtime, two even teams battling it out. The next year, Michigan screwed up and knocked JT Barrett out of the game, or they might have won that game. Couldn't happen. They didn't need that. So it was even, or close. And then the year that you mentioned, the game you went to, if you remember the gambling line on that game, Michigan was actually
4
favored.
points.
They were
Yeah,
favored
3
that
points.
day in Ohio. So perception was that they were kind of even terms there. And then, like you say today, I mean, it's not even close.
Not even close at all. And, this might be the only year in 21, no matter what you think of Michigan coming back, which I don't, frankly, at this point, think much of what they have coming back. This might be the only year Michigan has a chance for the next 6 years. Like, think about Ohio State in 22, 23, 24 with these last couple of recruiting classes and next year's and beyond. And you've got 3 5-star quarterbacks and a dozen 5-star wide receivers, and then another 4-star quarterback. I mean, obviously those guys all probably won't stay, but if you get a true freshman or redshirt freshman starting for you guys this year in the Big House, that might be Michigan's only chance. Because once if they lose this game, like it'll be another 5 or 6 years before I think Michigan even has a realistic chance to compete with Ohio State, let alone win the game.
Wow. What did you think of the offseason moves Harbaugh made, totally retooling that staff? What did you think of that?
I talked to Kirk a couple of days ago. It seems to me that when Harbaugh came in, he came in with a plan at Michigan. He was going to shake things up. He was going to find loopholes like, the overseas trips and the recruiting camps and anything he could to get an advantage within the rules. But the last 3 seasons, really ever since Tim Drevno left after the 2017 season, then he just kind of named a random offensive coordinator, and then all of a sudden Jim McElwain. In the last 3 years, it seems that everything he does is just off the cuff, right? Shoots in the hip. Josh Gattis, we need Ohio State scored 60 on us. Let's just go hire Alabama's receivers coach. That'll solve things. And this year, I think it's more the same. It's okay. We can't recruit with Ohio State. The playoff teams are the same teams in the top 5 recruiting every year. Let's just go get a bunch of young guys, some of them black, that relate to inner city, or just a black coach and a black player. I don't think there's anything any secret that is of advantage in recruiting. And so did the right thing in filling his staff maybe a little more diverse, but it's all guys that are underexperienced for their job. You've got 2 co-defensive coordinators who have never called plays. You've got an offensive line coach and a new co-OC who has never coached offensive line, never been an offensive coordinator. Josh Gattis had never called plays before. You get a high school coach, Ron Bellamy, who's now was your receiver coach, now your safety coach. You get a quarterbacks coach who was coaching running backs the last few years. So it seems to me like he just started calling guys and hired people like it was, I don't know, for your flag football pickup team, right? Oh, hey, you can't play. We got a running back now. Hey, you go play safety instead, right? Same thing with the coaching staff. So it didn't seem to make much sense. It seems to be playing out well in recruiting so far. I think they're off to a better start than I would have expected coming off last season. But I'm not confident that once they get into game time, that this is the staff that's going to beat Ohio State, let alone get to the heights that I think anybody realistically thought Michigan could be at by this point, which is a top 5 or 6 program competing for a playoff. So I thought it was very unplanned and it was very reactionary.
So did Michigan intentionally tap out of the game last year? Give us be honest.
Sure. So top line, Harbaugh down, I don't think so. But there is no doubt in my mind that the players stopped caring about the Corona rules, right? I know for a fact that there were at least 15 plus players, maybe more. I got a list of 15, 16 that left campus on Thanksgiving weekend, like that Wednesday, Thursday, went to their house within 2-hour driving distance, and did Thanksgiving with their family. No big deal. When you come back and then a week later, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden you've got 20 cases, 10 cases, whatever it is, and that's the end of the season. Like, they were told not to do that, and most of the players still did, right? And so that in my opinion, it's like, hey, we're 2-2, we did, 1-3, but you just got blown out a couple games. We got crushed by Wisconsin, the worst game in home loss in history. Why are you gonna go in and get a nose swab every day and all this stuff when it really doesn't matter. I think a lot of guys just start going out with their friends, seeing girls. So I don't think it was systemic, but I do think the players stopped caring, and that's what it was. So it was not this like, oh my gosh, we're doing everything by the book and bad luck. We got some coronavirus cases. I think it was guys just stopped caring, and deep down, were there Michigan players? If I were to bet, if we gave them truth serum, do you want to play Ohio State this year? I sure as hell didn't, right? I mean, I knew what the outcome was. I did really think that it would be an 80-point game. Going into the season, maybe I thought, oh, we could stay within 30 points if we're lucky. But after what Michigan put out there and those defensive backs, I mean, I legit think Ryan Day could have scored maybe close to 100, right? That might be unrealistic, but Urban could have scored 70 in 2018. I mean, he kneeled at the 10, right, with a minute or two left. So that's 70 and 18 with Rashawn Gary and Chase Winovich and all these guys. You don't think he could have scored 70 or 80 with, the guys they put out there last year? I think they could have.
Wow. This is an unbelievable. So was there a moment in time that you really felt like the Michigan thing started to go away? Because for me, it was when Lloyd left and they got the Rich Rod hire. And I mean, because like I played against Lloyd's teams and they were always really good. I was lucky to go 4-0 against them, but I mean, they had like Marlon Jackson, Jake Long, Stenovich, Chad Henne, who's still in the league, Mike Hart, Braylon Edwards, like Manningham. I mean, they had like top drawer David Harris, Alan Branch, like Woodley. I mean, they had top drawer dudes. And it was like when Rich got there, it's like all of a sudden, like they went from A+ talent to C. I mean, was that the turning point in your opinion?
So one of the turning points I point to, so you had Ted Ginn. So his punt return in 2004, that was a big one, right? Because Michigan came in as already had won the Big Ten, and you've got a freshman quarterback in Chad going against Ohio State team. And I think actually, I know Ohio State, you guys won the title in 2002, and 03 was a really good season. But if I recall correctly, you guys started this 2004, like, I think it was like a 3-3 record or 4-4 record, but then won 4 or 5 games to end the year. And so Michigan was super confident they were going to go in, ends up being a 2-touchdown Ohio State league. So that was like one of like, oh, that wasn't a great thing. And then 2005, even though Michigan had a down year with injuries, yada, yada, but when it was Anthony Gonzalez who caught that ball, like where he got like knocked out. And I think that was a very critical play in the rivalry, right? And somewhere in there in that 2005 game, there was a time where Michigan was up 9, and then Ohio State scored, and Michigan could have gone for it on 4th and short in their own, in Ohio State territory and chose to punt, right? And so you think that's 16, 15, 17 years ago. And, that one game, and then 2005, it's like that catch, and then the decision to punt, and all of a sudden, Ohio State's got a 2-game winning streak. You go into the 2006 season, Ohio State wins the game. They had the better team. I don't think there's any controversy on that one. It was a good game, but score probably closer than their game was in reality. 3-point score and maybe probably a 10-point margin of play, in my opinion. And then you get the same thing in 2007, where Michigan's expecting to win. Ohio State's losing the quarterback. They're losing these guys. And you guys come in with a national title game again. And so Lloyd's gone. You're on a 4-game losing streak. And at that point, it's kind of over. And then no one thought Brady Hoke was going to win these games. I know he won in 2011, but I mean, if what's his name? If Braxton Miller hits that pass in the 4th quarter wide open down the sideline, we're talking about like a 16-game winning streak or something like that, right? Like, I mean, I have these memories in my mind. Like, you guys are going back to plays. Like, I like. And so at the end of the day, you wrap all this up. 2013, go for 2 game, right? 2012, Michigan goes in the locker room with, it was like a 7 or a 10-point lead. And then I don't know if they scored in the second half. It seems in the entire rivalry since 2004 game, every time a play needed to be made, Ohio State made it, Michigan did. And I don't know how to equate that, right? It's like, stop Curtis Samuel when he's 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. No, 5 guys, just let him run all the way down and get to a half yard away from the first down. And so you go for it on 4th and 1. Because if he gets stopped, we're talking about like a 46, 47-yard field goal to tie it, right, in 16. And, Gonzalez making the catch, and Crable, instead of tackling Troy Smith, he gets the penalty. And so you got just all those different things over the years. And the only time Ohio State did make the play was that Braxton Miller pass, which would have, won the game and a 6-16 for you guys.
Yeah.
James, do you think most Michigan fans were hoping Harbaugh would be re-signed, or do you think they wish they would have went in another direction and went for Matt Campbell or someone like that?
I think most Michigan fans at the end of the season wanted him to be gone, right? Leave. If you get Matt Campbell, if you maybe get some candidate that we don't think about, I don't know who that candidate would be, but some, Rich Rodriguez was potentially a candidate like that. Like no one in 2007 thought Rich Rodriguez was going to take over for Lloyd Carr, but when he did, you're pretty excited. You saw what they did in 05 and 06 at West Virginia, so that was a cool thing. It didn't work out. But I think most Michigan fans, I'll give Michigan credit. I'll give Ohio State credit too. Think about the last 15 years, Ohio State and Michigan 3 times have had true coaching searches, where they got literally the best candidate that you could imagine taking the job at that time. I think Rich Rodriguez, it didn't work out. And Rich Rodriguez turned out to be not that great of a coach. But at the time, he just turned on the Alabama job the year before. So to get him at Michigan, like that's not, he was a play away or a game away from the national championship in 2007. He's Michigan's coach in 2008. Hoke was not a top candidate, obviously. Urban the next year, best candidate you could ever imagine. And then 3 years later, Jim Harbaugh is the best candidate you can imagine. So I do think Michigan has this confidence in their job that we're going to get someone, coaches are going to beg to be Michigan's coach, whether it's Matt Campbell or, Sean Payton or something like that. So I think most Michigan coaches, after the effort and the 5 losses to Ohio State, would have been 6. We should just call it 6 at this point. We're ready to see Harbaugh go. Yeah.
Wow.
But now it's the offseason, and it's offseason national championship time, right? For Michigan, it's like, oh, young staff. Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. We got it going on. This new guy from the Ravens, he's gonna do all kinds of analytics. Like, come on, give me a break. It's ridiculous.
With basketball,
okay, so James, I
go ahead, Ken.
I just have one question. I just one question for you. So Shane Morris, great quarterback or greatest quarterback?
Greatest recruit to ever guarantee a victory over Ohio State, right? I mean, greatest to do that of all time.
He's the legend on our board. We call him Sugar Shane Morris, 5-star.
Yes.
He's like a legend.
That was Bill's guy. Bill went all in on the fact that Shane Morris was gonna haunt our dreams. So that's for sure.
Definitely thought he would be good. I'm guilty there.
I mean, think about him and then Derek Green. They were in the same class, weren't they? I think, right?
Oh, I thought Derek Green was going to be good. I mean, he grew up an Ohio State fan, Eddie George jersey, and we actually took Ezekiel, despite what Rivals and Scout told us to do. We took Ezekiel over him.
Good choice, I think. Good choice. But I mean, they were the next Hart and Henny, right? Shane and Derek Green, and then the kid that Michigan fans really liked. Ty Isaac eventually ended up there like 2 years later, and he turned out to be nothing either. Anyway, so there was only one top 100 running back that year, Zeke, that it turned out to be anything.
James, with basketball being so good at Michigan the last decade or so, does that kind of ease the hurt of what's going on in football, or is it still, it's a football school and no matter what they do in basketball, it's not going to take away from what's not happening in football?
Yeah, it's 2 different entities. I don't know if it ever can ease the pain of football, but it makes the spring pretty fun. I mean, you've got 2 national title games, obviously, and maybe one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the country right now. Although last night's game was pretty. The Illinois game was kind of an eye opener. It definitely helps, right? Because if you paired this decade or this past decade's Michigan football, the 2010s, with the 2000s basketball, when they had their post sanctions decade of no tournament, all that, like that would be a really bad situation. But when March and February turn, the page turns, recruiting's over, all of a sudden you get a Sunday of a top 15 Michigan team. But yeah, that's pretty fun. I went to the Final Four a couple of years ago in 18. It was pretty, like, I don't know if you guys do this. Do you guys do this when Kirk, you're not playing anymore, and so you've got the fandom in there? do you convince yourself that no matter what the situation is, Ohio State's going to win? Because like, that's how I told you 6-6 in 2018 and 16. I'm just like, well, I don't want to spend all my money on this trip to Ohio State and Columbus because I got to save for the Big Ten title game and then the first playoff game and the national title. You're convinced to win. So like, do you guys you guys do what I do? Like 2018, I'm like, yes, I'm going to San Antonio because Michigan's got this national title in the bag. I don't want to miss this one. Of course, they got beat pretty good by Villanova.
That's part of the hedging you do. I mean, that's the good part about being in media is we don't have to buy tickets anymore. Before, man, it's tough because our fans do that because they get spoiled and they don't want to go to the first round of the playoffs because they want to go to the championship because they're both premium tickets and so we've gone to so many first round playoff games that people are like, I'm just gonna wait for the championship. I want to go to Miami, and I think that's a real thing. I really do think it's like that. What about you guys?
Yeah, well, but you got to remember though, I legitimately still have post-traumatic stress disorder from all the years that Michigan would beat us with teams that I felt had no chance to beat us. So, despite the fact that we've been on this run, this 15 of 60 or whatever the run is, I'm still haunted. I'm still haunted by Diakabatuka running. He runs in my dreams and still scores touchdowns. And I hated Desmond Howard beyond any measure that you should hate somebody that you don't know. I just hated him. And Anthony Carter, every time Anthony Carter got the ball, I thought he was going to score a touchdown. So for me, as an Ohio State fan, these last 15, 16 years have made it better, but I'm still not quite over it. So I just want you to know that it's still, I'm still emotionally hedging every time we play.
Sean Springs falling down in '96 was that him against
that was the worst. That was the worst.
It
was the worst.
It was.
Hey, Chris Perry in 03, man. That was my freshman year. I didn't travel to the game, and it was just like we go to a national championship. We're undefeated. We go up there and just get smashed by John Navarre. I'm like, oh my god, this sucks. Terrible.
Yeah, Braylon had a hell of a game in that 03 game. That was a great one.
He had a hell of a game in 04. He had like 200 yards against us, but our school newspaper picked us to lose. Our school beat writer, like the students at Ohio State picked us to lose by like 2 touchdowns to Michigan in 04. And I was like, I still know Jeff Svoboda, if you're listening, I've never let him live that down ever. Still.
Let me ask you guys about the Shane Morris of Ohio State. Talking about Justin Zwick, whatever became of Justin Zwick, because he was the Troy Smith to be, obviously, in that same recruiting class. I mean, that was a big, like, we talked about a couple of the turning tides in the thing, but Tressel in that 02 recruiting class, Claret and Zwick and what's his name, Troy Smith and a bunch of other guys, like that was a big turning point too. But if you'd have told me that a recruit of that 02 recruiting class would win the Heisman and go to a national title game, it was Justin Zwick from Maurice Claret, right? It certainly wasn't Troy Smith. So what happened with Zwick?
Couldn't play. I mean, there was no major injury. He just couldn't play. Couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie.
Couldn't play dead in the Western.
That's a great line. I'm gonna pull that one day.
Oh, you have to.
I've used it for 20 years and it's still working for me.
Oh, it is, man. That's gonna be on our next scoop drop of apparel. We're gonna put banks up. Yeah, I mean, and Troy was just a dynamic dude, man. Troy was tough, man. He's a dog. That guy, he won us all those Michigan games. Like without him, we don't win. Period. Like point blank. He was. I mean, you're at the 04 game. That was his coming out party. Balled out. We lost to Purdue the week before. They like Kyle Orton didn't play the entire game. He came in for the last drive and just marched right down the field on our defense. Like it was unbelievable. Like just Mariano Rivera closed us out. And then 05, I remember sitting on the bench looking up and we were down like 9 with like 7 minutes to go. And I'm like, we're really about to lose. We're about to lose these guys. These guys have like 5 losses or 4 losses. Like, we were supposed to go to like a BCS game. And I was like, we're really about to lose this thing. Then Santonio Holmes took over and Gonza made that catch and our defense stiffened up. And in 06, we couldn't stop you guys. You guys ran all over us and dropped 39 points, which is the most ever scored in the rivalry other than our 42. But that was all Troy, man. I mean, he was, Justin's whatever, but I mean, Troy is a great college player. I mean, this is what it is. Great leader. The Ted Ginn interview, we talked about it. Those two together were pretty good for us.
that one play, I'm thinking about plays that haunted me in this rivalry. The 4th and 1 where Troy Smith like came up the line, it was like 10 linemen or 9 linemen, and it was like 4th and 1. I just don't remember the exact player caught up, but you guys know what I'm talking about? Just went deep on that one.
Ken, what down was it? What down was it?
2nd and 1.
The 2nd and 1.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And didn't Ted Ginn line up as a tight end on that play?
Yes, it was like super jumbo heavy right. We had like
Right.
a guard, a tight end, or a guard tackle, tight end, and then like Ted. I mean, it was like, I had to look it up the other day because I was like, I know it wasn't on 4th and 1. I didn't think it was on 3rd and 1. It was like 2nd and 1 because like we always put in all these weird plays for like a weird situation, like 2nd and 2. Like how often do you get 2nd and 2? Like never. And I remember it was like, and I remember I turned to TJ Downing, who was my right guard, and his dad actually went to Michigan. I mean, his legacy. And I turned to TJ, it's like, you think we're gonna run that bullshit? And like as soon as it came in, it was like, because it was some weird, it was like jumbo, heavy right, super whatever. It was like this formation that literally we only had one play in. So it was like we're running the Ted play. And so like I knew to like fall on the ground, don't go downfield. And Beanie like flies through the air, tries to kill me, and everybody bites, and Ted runs past him, and it was amazing. So,
what was that other play in that game? There was like some play that everyone tried to say like Jim Tressel was some nun or something told him about the play. What was the running back in 06? Who was it again for you guys?
Pitt. Was it the Statue of Liberty?
Yes, it was like the play. Yeah, that's the one. Like, what was that play all about? Like, come on. I mean, give me a break.
The Statue of Liberty, we ran that. It was weird. We ran that play all the time, and it always worked. It was like the most proficient play of the Tressel era. And yes, you're my kid. My kid's hilarious. We ran that against Wisconsin in 04. We couldn't move the ball. We ran against you guys to ice the game. And it's just a real simple play. Like we just take like a couple steps in, we act like we're pass blocking, and then all of a sudden we sprint out. And I got my block, TJ got his block, and it's just, teams never see it coming. And it's just like such a goofy play, but it works really good. It's pretty amazing.
Hey James, looking ahead to next year, realistically, what are you expecting out of Michigan next year?
Yeah, I mean, there's always optimism as a Michigan fan. Post off-season All-Americans. I put this tweet out a couple of days ago. It's like the local media, who I think, like, I don't want to start any internet beef because I'm sure it exists, but I think Ann Arbor, Detroit has some of the worst local media in America because they don't hold anybody accountable. And so they'll ask these leading questions. Example. Sam Webb talking to Aiden Hutchinson's dad, a former Michigan player. It's like, oh, hey, I've heard chatter that Aiden is playing as good as the Bosa brothers. Would you consider him like a third Bosa brother, that level of player? And like, what's a dad going to say? No, he's not that good. And so like they bait him into questions. Yesterday's or Monday's press conference with Hutchinson and these guys. Every single question that these local Free Press and MGO Blog and Rivals guys, every question they asked was like, been hearing all the energy is great around campus, or great around the program. You want to talk about that? And so like, if I said, hey, Kirk, I hear your wife is the most beautiful woman in the world. Is that true? Like, no, she's not. She's terrible. Yeah. My wife's wonderful. She's wonderful. And that's the questions they ask. So they always build up the team in the offseason, which I just don't think is actually fair to the players or the coaches, but it is what it is. So no blue Kool-Aid this offseason for me. I've got a 6-6 team at best, right? Now, some of the coaches come in, they change things around. Harbaugh, stops aging at a like spoiled milk. If you look at a picture of Harbaugh in 2015 versus 2020, he looks like he's aged like 2 decades in that time frame. It's really crazy to think about. So I think he kind of acts like an old man. He's 57 or something like that. He came in, he's 52, but I got a 6-6 team at best. Depends on, the recruiting class. If Donovan Edwards becomes a superstar somehow as a freshman, if JJ McCarthy, but the guys that left the field last year was as bad as the Rich Rod team in 2008, in my opinion. So I didn't think the talent level was very good at all. So 6-6 would be lucky, but if you're realistic, like you might think 4-8 is possible, right? Because 2-4, you were going to lose to Ohio State. You would have lost to Iowa in that championship week game. The other game, which was Illinois, I mean, that might have been a toss-up. So if you play all the games, at best you were 3-6 last year. That's almost a full schedule, right? That's 3 games shy of 12. So if they get above 7-5, they hit 8-4, 9-3, I'll be surprised. I'll be really surprised, to be honest. And so we'll see. We will see.
And then assuming it's bad next year, 6-6, 5-7. Does that bring about, Harbaugh's future again? Does it get out of hand again? Or is he safe no matter what?
I don't think he is safe, honestly. Like the way they structured the contract, it's a 1-year contract times 5. Like Michigan has no downside to fire him after next year, and Harbaugh has no downside to leave for another job if it's successful. So it's very much like a marriage with a prenup that, you come in with what you came with. Like there is nothing that stops Michigan from firing him next year with 4 years left on there. I guess it would be 5 years left in the contract, right? Or 4 years left in the contract next year, because the buyout it's pocket change, right? And Harbaugh could leave for the job. So they've set it up, in my opinion, where he's taking $4 million a year, half the price. And these incentives sound great, but he's not going to make them. So I really think after last year, there was a chance that Harbaugh could have retired, right? Because it would have been a tough pill to swallow for him to be fired. It would have been a really tough pill for him to leave and try and go get another job, but never being Ohio State, never winning a Big Ten title, all the negative stats you see every Saturday that he plays. So I thought there was a chance that he could just sit there and look in the mirror one day when he's getting ready to head out in the world and say to himself, 57, 58, why don't I just retire? We'll either find a coach or I'll name an interim, whatever it is. I'll take a 1 year in the athletic department, kind of like Mark Antoni did, as a assistant athletic director. And then I'll fade off into the sunset with a $10 million exit package and everyone will be comfortable. But if they go 6-6, 5-7, like the fever pitch of negativity will be so unbelievable. Like no realistic person could, as Ward Manuel or the president of the school or the guys who are paying the bills at Michigan, could bring him back. I think they could deal with an Ohio State loss if it's a 9-3 or 10-2 team, but like a 6-6, 5-7, I think the negativity, which is already bad enough right now, would be elevated 5x. I mean, to sign the guy to a 5-year extension, 4-year extension after last season, I mean, I was thinking about it as we came down the wire in November and December. I'm like, they're going to announce this extension if they do. And Michigan is going to be the laughing stock of college football, which they kind of were, right? I mean, that's what it became. So if you do that with a second season, I just don't realistically think, Michigan guy or no, how anybody could come back, because the Yoder family has been donating and had season tickets for 30 plus years, and it's not insignificant amount of money. Like there's consideration that might not go on anymore at this point. And so I'm certainly not the only one that's thinking of that. So we'll see what happens next year.
You got anything else, Nevada? I'll let my man go.
Boy, this has been great. This has just been it's been great. It's been great to get a perspective from the other side, and it's definitely going to, I think the rivalry's going to a different place. I think this is definitely the year that the rivalry goes to a different place, and I kind of, I agree with something that James said earlier, which is this is their best shot. They better give us their best shot this year, because it's the one chance they have to steal one with a home game and with a new quarterback, because if they don't get us this year, it's gonna be a while.
Mm-hmm. Quick, mind if I ask you guys like two or three rapid fire questions I had coming into it? I'd love to hear your answer on this. Okay, so my 30,000 foot view. I don't know if there's any is factual or is any basis for fact. I'd love to hear your point. I feel at this point that Maradi and Mark Pantoni are the two most important people in the Big Ten, even more important than Ryan Day. Example, Ryan Day leaves to go take the Eagles job, takes some other job in the NFL. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, they bring in whoever it is, Matt Campbell, whatever. Like, I don't think the train stops if those two guys stay. Thoughts on that? Just assessment from where I stand as like an envious Michigan fan.
Well, for me, I think you're spot on. I agree 100%. Those guys are, and not just, from the Ohio State perspective, but if you look at, I talked to a lot of coaches around the country. I was more of a national guy than just an Ohio State guy. And the respect that people have for Pantoni and Marotti is unbelievable. And so I agree with you. Do I think Matt Campbell could do everything Ryan Day has done so far? I think he could. Could be wrong. Who knows? But I agree with you. I mean, I don't think any Ohio State fan would like to see Ryan Day leave by any means. And I don't think he is going anywhere. But, if he decides to go into the ministry, next week and they have to hire someone else, I think the recruiting would be totally in place like it is now. And I think strength and conditioning, where they've had an edge on most of the schools in the country, I think that would stay the same. So I think it's a great point, and I would agree with that.
So why does Pantoni only make $225,000 a year, which is a raise, by the way? Because a year ago he was making less than Matt Dudak a year ago at this time, which is Michigan's recruiting guy.
He doesn't have an agent, or he didn't. I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he does now, but 2-3 years ago he did not have an agent, and the coaching community looks at a guy like Mark Pantoni as a geek. I don't think they appreciate what he can do. If I was a school that wanted to get good, but I'm not good, but I'm close to being good, I would offer him $1 million a year. They're paying tight end coaches $450,000, $500,000 now. These guys are retards. They're just out of high school. Mark Pantoni is the best in his field, and recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. I can't believe somebody hasn't offered him $1 million, come change our recruiting. But I don't think the coaching community views a guy like Mark Pantoni the way they view Josh Gaddis or the next great thing.
I had this like epiphany about a few months back when Michigan was thinking about Harbaugh gone, staying. Like, if Harbaugh was smart, if he had any business sense, if he was like a Steve Jobs ruthless CEO, he would just say, for $6 million a year, I could decimate Ohio State's program. I could hire Corey Dennis to be my passing coordinator for $1.5 a year. I could hire Brian Hartline for $1.2 million, which is like double what they're making now. I give Marotti 1.5, 50% raise, and then I could just get Pantoni making general manager of Michigan football for $1 million a year, which is 4x what he makes. Like, I don't know why anybody does this, because I think Pantoni's gonna be the general manager of an NFL team within 5 years, personally.
Not arguing with you. I mean, I've written about Pantoni's salary for the past, 10 years or whatever. And it's like, it's unbelievable to me that he makes as little as he does. But the coaches I deal with, they look at Mark Pantoni as some pencil neck little geek. He never played the game. He's never coached before. And they're the stars of the show. And I think they're totally wrong. But, until we see someone offer him a blank check, which hasn't happened yet. So I'm not waiting on it.
What do you think, Ken?
Yeah, no, I think it's, but I mean, if you look at it though, it's the way that strength and conditioning used to be viewed. Those were positions that were vastly underpaid, and now those guys are getting paid, pretty good money. Mark is just in a position where those positions have not been highly compensated. So he's kind of, stuck in that rut where he makes, he's making 180, 200, 220, 250. But James, you're 100% right. I mean, he's the guy, dollar for dollar. He's the best value on the staff. And what's more important than recruiting? I mean, it's the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. And he's the guy that brings in the Jimmies and Joes. So, I'm not lobbying for Mark to go anywhere, but he's a guy that's got to get paid because he's a vital piece. He might be the vital piece. There's a reason why Urban Meyer, who in my opinion is one of the greatest college coaches of all time, his first two calls were Marotti and Pantoni. There's a reason for that, and he doesn't miss.
I was praying. I'm like, yes, Urban, get these guys, take them away, take them a job. I was like, oh, Mark's from Florida. He was down there with the Gators. He's taking that job for sure. It'll be like 2 years as player personnel, then a general manager job before he's 40 years old. And I was pretty disappointed that he didn't take the job. I'll be honest with you there. So next question that I have there is like, what was I going to say? I had a question. I kind of lost it for a second there. Quarterbacks, right? For this year is, I don't know if I saw anything from the young guys this year. If I'm taking unbiased, I check out the recruiting film on the internet. I think McCord's starting for you guys this year. Like that might be way off. I know people are saying, and I saw all the Instagram comments on what's his name? Just drawing a blank. California quarterback.
Stroud.
Yes, Stroud. I saw all the players giving him love on Instagram last week, but I think the high school recruiting film, I think McCord blows him out of the water. What's your take on that?
Go on, Bank.
For me, I've been writing that, and I think Nevada has been too, that I think Ohio State fans are under the misnomer that they love CJ Stroud, and they should. CJ Stroud is really freaking talented, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then the stargazer effect of Quinn Ewers, and McCord is kind of sandwiched in between those two guys, and he's kind of an afterthought. McCord is far more ready coming out of his high school program with his skill set to be quarterback as a freshman than CJ Stroud was coming out of his school with his limited experience. Okay. Now, are they going to start a true freshman? I don't know, but McCord is not to be slept on. He's really good. He's really talented. I agree with you. It's not going to blow me away if he's the starter next year because he's good enough, but he's going against CJ Stroud, who's really good. So I think it's going to be a heck of a battle.
There was a leading question into this one, which is not the best way to keep Quinn Ewers committed and enrolled at Ohio State is to go 8-4 this year? Because I'm sure you guys have thought about this. I've thought about it. Is if you go 11-1, 12-1 with McCord or Stroud or Miller as freshman eligibility, like that might scare Ewers off. I don't know if it will. He's the best recruit since whoever, but it's like he's a 6-star quarterback. But like it's very rare that you have a quarterback of that caliber, undisputed number 1 player in the country by far, that would come in with a freshman eligible quarterback the year prior to him has a starting job on a winning team. Like that would be a pretty tough ask, right?
Well, the way I would look at it, and I don't mean to cut Nevada off there, is if Stroud gets the job this year and he's really, really good, to where Quinn Ewers knows he has no chance to beat him out, then Stroud would start 2022 and he would be draft eligible if he's that good. So that wouldn't really scare Quinn Ewers. Like they're going to have 4 quarterbacks at some point, I think, unless someone leaves before Ewers gets there. And so somebody's going to leave. Okay. It's inevitable in this year, the way the portal's set up. So, but I don't think you throw away a year. You don't throw away and go 8-4 next year for Quinn freaking Ewers, who's never played it down as a high school senior. Ohio State has a legitimate chance to win a national championship next year, only because they're probably going to win the Big Ten. The Big Ten is going to be worse than it was this year. And if you win the Big Ten, you're almost locked into the playoffs. You might win it all. Heck with that 8-4 just for Quinn freaking Ewers. I mean, that seems really stupid to me. How do we know he's good? Maybe he's Shane Morris. Maybe he's Justin Zwick. Man, you got to win when you can win. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You got, forget 8-4. Go win them all next year and hoist that shiny trophy. That's just
last question I had.
I want to hear Nevada.
Nevada, go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
Let's go Nevada.
Well, look, I think it's one of those situations that in this day and age, anywhere that Ewers goes, he's going to be facing competition. There's going to be the 4- and 5-star guys literally in every good roster anywhere he goes, and those guys generally are confident enough. I mean, look at Justin Fields now. I mean, again, he transferred, but he went to Georgia with a freshman quarterback there that they've gone deep, almost won the whole thing. So I think these guys have a lot of confidence in their abilities, and as Bank said, I'm geeked about getting viewers, but I look at our roster and I look at our team right now, and unless something dramatic happens, I expect us to be in the national championship hunt every year from now on, regardless of who the quarterback is, regardless of who the head coach is. Like, we're loaded. So, I think it'll work itself out. These things generally do. And when you play, you're always one play away from being the guy anyway. If somebody goes down and gets nicked up or hurt, look what happened with Joe Burrow. So, you just never know on this stuff. And I guess we'll just see when it comes. But it's going to be fun to watch this year.
All right, last question is, I got a connection, a friend, at the state of Ohio. I grew up in Medina. Said Drew Aller, LR, is the best quarterback in the state in a decade. He might be hyperbole here, but I really never followed it until I saw him putting all these stats on St. Ignatius, et cetera, at the end of the year. Quick take on that prospect from my hometown.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's really good. He's got offers now. They come in every day now, and it's Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, everywhere, Tennessee. He's really, really good. And I've known him since he was a freshman and have liked him ever since then. But Ohio's produced some pretty good quarterbacks. I mean, just Evan Prater a couple of years ago. And, Drew's right there with him. You know what I mean? Drew's, he's really good. So he's I would put it this way. If you eliminate Quinn Ewers, if Quinn Ewers decides playing a band, give up sports, Ohio State could take Drew Aller, and Drew Aller would compete with Jack Miller and CJ Stroud. He's that good. So, really good. Better than Quinn Ewers? No, I would take Quinn Ewers over Drew Aller. But Drew can play at a high Power 5 level for sure. And he will. And the commitment could be coming fairly soon, too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm like, oh, yeah, Michigan offered him, but I heard he absolutely hates Michigan, so no chance in going there, which is too bad.
I don't know that he hates Michigan. I wouldn't say that, but there's no chance he's going there.
And this is kind of like I was getting texts like, hey, this kid from Medina, he's dropping 6 touchdowns in St. Ignatius. Talked to him after the game, hates Michigan, but this is back in October, November. Yeah. So maybe that was hyperbole, right?
I think it's hyperbole, but he's not going there.
Nice, yeah. So those are all the questions, man. Good stuff. Appreciate everything. Yeah, this is a good chat.
Well, hey, thanks for me, for doing this. I've admired your work for a long time, and it's good to finally, put a face to the name. And I really appreciate you doing this with us, man. You're a good dude, and we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime, guys. Kirk, thanks for inviting me. Good meeting you guys on video here.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you guys. All right, I'll upload this in a little bit. Cool.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You guys have a good one.
Thank you.
You too.